The war ended not with celebration, but with silence. Across 17 star systems, Fraktar fleets simply stopped fighting. Ships that had been advancing toward targets suddenly changed course and fled toward the galactic rim. Commanders who had sworn to die before surrendering broadcast unconditional capitulation on all frequencies. The Fraktar Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just months before, fragmented into thousands of isolated systems begging for mercy. But victory brought new fears for the Galactic Confederation. In their command center aboard Harmony Prime, the leadership gathered to discuss a problem they had never imagined: what to do with allies who were more terrifying than their enemies. "They saved us," Velthara said quietly, her webbed fingers trembling as she reviewed battle reports. "But at what cost? We invited apex predators into our galaxy." General Zixtar's compound eyes reflected the tactical displays showing human ships patrolling former war zones. "They could conquer us easily. Now, our defenses were built to stop the Fraktar, not Deathworlders." Fleet Admiral Quindala's crystal body chimed with nervous harmonics. Perhaps that was their plan all along: defeat our enemies, then claim the spoils. Their fears seemed justified. Human ships moved through Confederation space with casual authority, their weapons more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their crews displayed casual competence in environments that would kill most species. Their coordination made the Confederation's best efforts look clumsy by comparison, but the humans had their own problems to solve. Ambassador Sangwoo stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Chamber on Harmony Prime. He was a quiet man with kind eyes, but when he spoke, his words carried the weight of a species that had conquered an impossible world. "You called for aid and we answered," he said simply. "But I need you to understand what you've invited into your galaxy." The holographic displays around him showed Earth in detail. Not the peaceful blue marble it appeared from space, but the reality of a world locked in constant conflict with itself. Weather systems that could level cities, earthquakes that could split continents, radiation levels that would sterilize most worlds. "We are not like you," Sangwoo continued. "We didn't evolve on a world that taught us cooperation through abundance. We learned unity through scarcity, peace through war, love through loss." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We come from a place that taught us the universe is fundamentally hostile to life. Everything we are, everything we've built, comes from that understanding." The alien representatives shifted nervously in their seats. Several had seen human combat footage. They knew what these creatures could do when threatened. "What do you want from us?" Velthara asked carefully. "Partnership," Sangwoo replied. "Not conquest, not domination. We want to work together to build something neither of our species could achieve alone." Dr. Myung stepped forward to explain the human vision. She was small and gentle, but her eyes held the quiet confidence of someone who had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger. "Your species achieved wonders through cooperation and peaceful development," she said. "You built a civilization based on harmony and mutual respect. You created art and science and philosophy that enriches the galaxy." The displays changed to show Confederation achievements: faster-than-light communication networks that connected thousands of worlds, medical technology that could extend life for centuries, artistic works that brought tears to eyes across species barriers. "But your peaceful nature also made you vulnerable," Myung continued. "When the Fraktar came, you had no answer for predators who didn't share your values." She gestured to the human ships visible through the chamber's transparent walls. "We offer protection. We are the shield that lets civilization flourish. We are the guard dogs that watch the darkness so you don't have to." The proposal was radical: a permanent human military presence throughout Confederation space, joint patrols of dangerous sectors, human colonies established on worlds too harsh for other species to inhabit. "And what do you gain from this arrangement?" asked Commander Zixtar suspiciously. Captain Junho, recently promoted to diplomatic liaison, answered with characteristic human directness: "Purpose. On Earth, we learned that strength without meaning is just destruction. You give our strength meaning." The negotiations took weeks. The Confederation wanted guarantees that humans wouldn't use their superior military might to dominate peaceful species. The humans wanted assurance that they wouldn't be treated as mercenaries or outcasts. Slowly, carefully, they built trust. The first test came when reports arrived of pirate attacks in the outer systems. Fraktar remnants who had turned to raiding, rather than accept defeat. The Confederation's remaining fleets were stretched thin, unable to respond effectively. Captain Kyungmin's task force dealt with the threat in characteristic human fashion. They didn't just defeat the pirates, they eliminated piracy as a profession in that sector. Word spread quickly that attacking civilian ships in human-protected space was not just dangerous, it was suicidal. The second test was more subtle. A trade dispute between two Confederation species threatened to escalate into conflict. Traditional diplomacy had failed, with both sides preparing for what would have been the first interspecies war in Confederation history. Commander Yuna arrived with a single ship and no weapons. She listened to both sides, studied their grievances, and proposed a solution that neither species had considered. Her approach was uniquely human, practical, direct, and focused on results rather than honor. Humans think differently than we do, Velthara observed after the dispute was resolved. They see problems where we see traditions. They find solutions where we see impossibilities. Trust grew slowly. Human colonies were established on worlds too dangerous for other species. Asteroid mining operations in radiation-heavy systems. Research stations near black holes. Settlements on planets with crushing gravity or toxic atmospheres. These weren't just military outposts. They were communities where humans lived and worked, raised families, and built futures. Places where the impossible became routine through human stubbornness and ingenuity. The real breakthrough came when the first joint missions began. Human ships working alongside Confederation vessels, human crews training with alien officers, human techniques being adapted for species with different capabilities. Lieutenant Minhyuk found himself assigned to a Merdine exploration vessel, teaching aquatic aliens how to handle high-stress situations. The key, he explained to his new crewmates, is not to eliminate fear but to use it. Fear keeps you alive if you don't let it control you. Dr. Hana established medical exchanges where human medics learned alien healing techniques while teaching trauma surgery to species who had never needed such skills. Every species has something to teach, she said. We just need to be willing to learn. The changes were gradual but profound. Trade routes that had been abandoned due to dangerous conditions reopened under human escort. Scientific expeditions ventured into regions previously considered too hazardous. Worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable became thriving colonies. The galaxy was expanding, not through conquest but through cooperation between species with complementary strengths. The final test came 5 years after the war's end. Long-range sensors detected a new threat approaching from outside the galaxy. Ships of unknown design and hostile intent, heading straight for Confederation space. The response was immediate and coordinated. Human fleets moved to intercept while Confederation scientists worked to understand the threat. Information flowed seamlessly between species, each contributing their unique expertise to the common defense. When the alien scouts saw what awaited them, humans and their allies working as one, Deathworlders and Gardenworlders united in purpose, they turned and fled back to whatever darkness had spawned them. Captain Junho filed the final report from his patrol ship orbiting a neutron star, integration proceeding successfully. Local species adapting to human presence faster than projected. Recommendation: approve requests for expanded cooperation. The galaxy has more Deathworlds than Earth, but fewer Deathworlders to tame them. The report included an image that captured the new reality perfectly. Human children playing with alien friends on a space station orbiting the neutron star. A location that would have been considered a death trap before humans arrived to prove that anywhere could be home with the right approach. Ambassador Sangwoo concluded his final diplomatic report with words that would be carved into monuments across the galaxy. They called for aid against an enemy that would have destroyed their civilization. What answered was not just military might, but a partnership that made the impossible possible. We are no longer humans and aliens. We are something new. We are galactic citizens. The Confederation had called for help against the Vraktar Empire. What arrived were deathworlders who didn't just defeat their enemies, they became family. The galaxy would never be the same. But then again, it was never supposed to be. The end came not with fire and thunder, but with perfect silence. General Changmin stood in the command center of the human flagship, watching 17 different star systems on his tactical display. In each system, human forces were moving into position for simultaneous strikes across thousands of light-years of space. The operation required timing, measured in microseconds, and coordination that defied physics. "All units report ready," announced his communications officer. Changmin nodded once. "Execute." Across the galaxy, human ships moved as one, not as separate fleets following similar orders, but as parts of a single organism responding to a unified will. The attack began everywhere at once with precision that made the Confederation's best tacticians weep with envy. Commander Yuna had tried to explain human coordination to the alien observers, but words failed to capture the reality. "Individual humans are dangerous," she had said, "but connected humans become something that transcends biology." The demonstration unfolded across 17 star systems simultaneously. In each location, human forces adapted to different challenges with fluid grace. Some faced heavily fortified positions. Others encountered desperate Vraktar fleets. A few found only empty space where the enemy had fled in terror. It didn't matter. The humans adjusted to each situation without missing a beat, sharing information and resources across impossible distances. What should have been 17 separate battles became movements in a single, galaxy-spanning symphony of war. Fleet Admiral Quindala watched from the Confederation command ship, her crystal body resonating with frequencies of pure amazement. How are they doing this? Our fastest communications take minutes to reach nearby systems. They're coordinating across the entire war zone in real time. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Wanho, the combat medic, had been studying human behavior patterns while treating wounded from both sides. He understood something about his own species that even they didn't fully grasp. "We're not actually communicating faster than light," he explained to the gathered alien observers. "We're thinking the same thoughts. Humans who train together long enough develop something like shared consciousness. We know what our packmates will do because we would do the same thing." The concept was alien to creatures who had evolved on gentle worlds where cooperation was learned behavior. But humans had developed it as a survival mechanism on a planet where teamwork meant the difference between life and death. Captain Dong-hyun provided the tactical perspective. On Earth, the most successful predators weren't the strongest or fastest. They were the ones who could work together perfectly, pack hunters who moved as one mind in multiple bodies. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula became the ultimate demonstration of this principle. The massive Vraktar fleet had retreated into the nebula's sensor-disrupting clouds, thinking they had found sanctuary from human coordination. They had never been more wrong. Dong-hyun led his flotilla into the nebula using techniques that seemed impossible to alien minds. The electromagnetic interference that blinded conventional sensors meant nothing to humans who had learned to navigate by instinct and intuition. "How are you tracking us?" demanded the captured Vraktar navigator later. "Your sensors were as blind as ours." "We don't need sensors to know where our people are," Dong-hyun had replied. "We feel them." The human ships moved through the nebula, like fish in a school, each vessel knowing the position of every other without seeing them. They communicated through micropulses, through subtle changes in engine harmonics, through methods that had been developed in Earth's deep oceans where electronics failed and teamwork was everything. But the real revelation came when Sergeant Nyan was wounded during a boarding action. The injury should have weakened the human response, forcing them to divide attention between combat and medical care. Instead, it made them stronger. The moment Nyan went down, every human in the battle zone felt it. Not through technology or communication, but through the deep bonds that connected humans who had served together. The response was immediate and primal. "Target priority has changed," Dong-hyun announced calmly over the comm. All units, our packmate is down. Show them what that means. What followed was a display of coordinated violence that burned itself into Vraktar nightmares for generations. Humans across the nebula moved with unified purpose, their individual skills combining into something far greater than the sum of its parts. They didn't just fight harder. They fought smarter, sharing tactical insights instantaneously across the battlefield. When one human discovered a Vraktar weakness, every human knew about it immediately. When a ship found an optimal attack angle, the entire fleet adjusted to exploit it. It was like fighting a single enemy with 1,000 bodies, reported the Vraktar tactical officer who survived the encounter. Hurt one part, and the whole creature responded. There was no confusion, no hesitation, no individual fear. Just perfect, terrifying unity. The psychological impact on the Vraktar was total. They had built their empire through individual strength and hierarchical command structures. The idea of creatures who could share consciousness across space broke their understanding of reality. Communications Officer Minhyuk intercepted the enemy transmissions and translated them for the Confederation leaders. The messages revealed an empire in complete psychological collapse. They're not talking about losing battles anymore, he reported. They're talking about fighting demons, creatures that share a collective mind. They think humans are one giant organism pretending to be individuals. In a way, they weren't entirely wrong. Humans fighting together became something greater than individual warriors. They became a force of nature, unstoppable and inevitable as gravity itself. The final proof came when the Vraktar attempted their last desperate gambit. Instead of military targets, they launched simultaneous attacks on civilian populations across dozens of systems, hoping to force human attention away from the front lines. It was the worst mistake they could have made. Human response was instantaneous and absolute. Every human in the galaxy felt the attack on innocent lives as a personal wound. The reaction transcended military discipline or strategic thinking. It became something primal and unstoppable. Admiral Seungjae didn't need to issue orders. Every human commander knew what needed to be done. The response was coordinated across the entire galaxy without a single transmission, planned by thousands of minds working as one. How did they know? Demanded the captured Vraktar Supreme Admiral. Later, we attacked 73 systems simultaneously. How did every human force know to respond instantly? The answer came from Captain Kyung-min during the final interrogation. Because an attack on any innocent is an attack on all of us. We don't need orders to protect children. We need orders to stop. The Vraktar offensive shattered against human unity like waves against stone. Every attack was met by perfectly coordinated defense. Every retreat was cut off by forces that seemed to anticipate their movements. Every desperate gambit failed against enemies who thought as one, but moved as many. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a collective realization. The Vraktar Empire simply stopped fighting, not because they were defeated in the conventional sense, but because they had lost the will to continue against an enemy that defied every law of individual existence. The surrender came in a single transmission broadcast across all frequencies. We yield to the collective from the impossible world. We cannot fight what we cannot understand. In the aftermath, Confederation scientists tried to study human coordination patterns. They wanted to understand how beings could share consciousness across interstellar distances without technology. Dr. Su-Yung provided the simplest explanation. We learned to be one people because our world taught us that divided we die. Unity wasn't philosophy for us. It was evolution. But perhaps Commander Yuna said it best when addressing the Galactic Council. You see us as individuals because that's how you think. But humans who fight together, who trust together, who bleed together, become something more. We become what our world made us. We become a pack. The Vraktar Empire was gone, scattered to the winds by their encounter with creatures who had transcended individual existence without losing individual identity. The galaxy was safe. But the Confederation now faced a new question. How do you coexist with a species that can think as one while acting as many? How do you negotiate with people who share a collective consciousness? The answer would reshape galactic civilization forever. The first sign of change came when the Vraktar battle station at Kepler 442 went silent. The massive fortress had been conducting experiments on captured civilians, trying to understand how different species responded to pain. It was a monument to Vraktar cruelty, equipped with the most advanced torture chambers in the galaxy. For 12 hours, the station had been broadcasting screams across all frequencies. Then suddenly, nothing. When Confederation scouts arrived 3 days later, they found the station intact but empty. Every Vraktar aboard was dead, but the prisoners had been freed. Security footage showed what happened, and the images spread through both fleets like wildfire. Marine Colonel Gion had led the assault. The humans hadn't just killed the enemy, they had done it with surgical precision, moving through the station like angels of death. They had saved every prisoner while eliminating every captor, but it was how they killed that sent shockwaves through both sides. The humans hadn't used their advanced weapons or superior technology. They had used their hands, their teeth, their raw physical strength. They had torn through the Vraktar defenders like prehistoric hunters taking down prey. They fought like animals, whispered one rescued prisoner to Confederation debriefers, but animals with the minds of tactical geniuses. The footage was broadcast across all Vraktar communication networks, not as propaganda, but as a promise. This is what happens when you hurt the innocent. This is what real predators look like. When they stop pretending to be civilized. Admiral Seungjae watched the tactical reports flowing in from across the war zone. The Vraktar offensive had not just stopped. It was collapsing. Entire fleets were withdrawing without engaging. Commanders were refusing orders to advance into human-controlled space. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're intercepting surrender offers from 17 Vraktar systems." "Ignore them," Seungjae replied coldly. "They chose to target civilians. Now they deal with the consequences." Dr. Wanho, a combat medic, tended to rescued prisoners in the medical bay while Confederation observers watched in amazement. The humans worked with gentle efficiency, healing wounds and comforting trauma victims with the same hands they used to tear through enemy soldiers. "How do you switch between killer and healer so easily?" asked a confused Mirrodin doctor. Wanho looked up from bandaging a child's broken arm. "On Earth, protecting the weak and destroying threats are the same instinct. We learned to be healers, because we learned to be warriors. But the real transformation was happening in human tactics." Captain Hyunwoo explained the change to horrified Confederation leaders during a strategy meeting. "Before, we were fighting to win a war," he said, simply. "Now we're fighting to end one so completely that no one will ever threaten you again." The difference was immediately apparent. Human attacks became more precise but infinitely more terrifying. They didn't just destroy Vraktar military assets. They dismantled the enemy's ability to think of themselves as predators. A Vraktar admiral, who had ordered the bombing of refugee camps, found his flagship surrounded by human vessels. Instead of destroying it, they systematically disabled every system except life support and communications. Then they left it drifting in space as a monument to failure. The message was clear. We could have killed you all. We chose not to. This time. But the humans saved their most devastating response for the Vraktar High Command. Intelligence reports showed that the enemy leadership was hiding on a fortress world deep in their territory, protected by layers of defensive fleets. Any conventional attack would have required massive casualties and months of fighting. The humans took a different approach. Commander Jinwoo led an infiltration mission that defied every law of military strategy. His team slipped through Vraktar defenses using techniques that seemed impossible to alien minds. They moved through heavily guarded space like ghosts, avoiding detection through methods developed in the deep oceans of Earth. The fortress world never knew they were there until it was too late. The humans didn't attack the defenses or the military installations. Instead, they appeared in the private chambers of every major Vraktar leader simultaneously, not to kill them, but to deliver a message. General Changmin stood in the bedroom of the Vraktar Supreme Commander, having bypassed security systems that should have been impenetrable. The alien leader cowered in his bed, surrounded by guards who had been disarmed without firing a shot. You wanted to see what Deathworlders are capable of, Changmin said quietly. Look around you. We are standing in your most secure location, surrounded by your best troops, and there is nothing you can do to stop us. The human held up a small device. This is a beacon. We could have made it a bomb. Every one of your leaders is looking at one right now. We could have killed all of you tonight without breaking a sweat. He placed the beacon on the bedside table and stepped back. Instead, we're giving you a choice. End this war now, or we stop being polite. Similar scenes played out across the fortress world. Human commandos appeared in impossible places, delivered the same message, and vanished again like smoke. The psychological impact was total. The Vraktar leadership had built their empire on being the strongest, most feared force in the galaxy. In one night, humans had proven that strength meant nothing against intelligence and training. But the breaking point came when the humans demonstrated their ultimate advantage, not individual skill or superior technology, but their ability to work together with an efficiency that bordered on telepathy. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula became the stuff of legend. A massive Vraktar fleet, desperate and cornered, made its final stand in the nebula's sensor-disrupting clouds. The electromagnetic interference made conventional tactics impossible. Ships couldn't see each other, communications failed, and navigation became guesswork. The Vraktar thought they had found sanctuary. They were wrong. Captain Dongyun led 30 human ships directly into the nebula using techniques that should have been impossible. The humans navigated by sound, by instinct, by methods that had been developed by submarine crews centuries earlier. But more than that, they moved as one organism. Each ship knew exactly where the others were without seeing them. They communicated through methods that bypassed electronic systems entirely. They coordinated attacks across light years of space with split-second timing. Commander Yuna tried to explain it to stunned Confederation observers afterward. On Earth, individual strength meant nothing without cooperation. We learned to work together because everything else was trying to kill us. Unity wasn't philosophy. It was survival. The battle lasted 4 hours. When the nebula finally cleared, the Vraktar fleet was gone. Not destroyed, but scattered. Their crews had abandoned their ships rather than face an enemy that fought with impossible coordination. During the battle, Sergeant Nyan had been severely wounded in a boarding action. Instead of retreating for medical treatment, she had continued fighting. When other humans saw her injury, their response had intensified rather than weakened. That's when I knew we were dealing with something beyond my understanding, reported the captured Vraktar tactical officer later. Individual humans are dangerous, but when you hurt one of them, the others become something else entirely, something that shouldn't exist. The war didn't end with a great battle or formal surrender. It ended with whispers spread across Vraktar, communication networks, stories of the humans from the impossible world, tales of warriors who fought like demons but protected the innocent like saints. Vraktar fleets began surrendering without engaging. Planets offered unconditional capitulation at the first sight of human ships. The empire that had seemed unstoppable began fragmenting as systems decided that any fate was better than facing Deathworlders in combat. Admiral Seungjai received the final report in his quarters aboard the flagship. The Vraktar Supreme Command was requesting immediate peace talks, unconditional surrender, complete withdrawal from Confederation space. Terms? Asked his adjutant. Seungjai looked out at the stars and thought about burning hospitals and murdered children. No terms. They surrender everything, or we finish what they started. The message went out across the galaxy on all frequencies. The war was over. The Vraktar Empire had fallen not to superior firepower, but to the realization that they had picked a fight with the wrong species. But for the Galactic Confederation, victory brought new fears. They had called for help against the Vraktar. What they had received was something far more terrifying than their enemies had ever been. The question now was simple. What do you do with allies who are more dangerous than your enemies? That question would define the future of the galaxy. The human fleet didn't charge into battle like the Confederation expected. Instead, they disappeared. For 3 days, there was no sign of them anywhere. The Confederation's sensors could detect no human ships, no communications, no movement. It was as if they had vanished completely from the galaxy. Velthera paced nervously in the command center of Harmony Prime. Where are they? The Vraktar are advancing on 3 fronts and our supposed allies have abandoned us. General Zixtar clicked his mandibles anxiously. Perhaps they realized the truth, that this war cannot be won. But Fleet Admiral Quindala had been studying human tactical data. Her crystal body rang with a strange harmony. No, this is part of their plan. They told us they don't fight fair. She was right. 50 light-years away, Commander Jinwoo guided his stealth ship through Vraktar-controlled space like a ghost. The human vessel was invisible to enemy sensors, its hull designed to bend light and energy around it. Inside, the crew worked in absolute silence. "Target acquired," whispered his communications officer. "Vraktar supply convoy. 12 ships." Jinwoo studied the enemy formation through his periscope. The Vraktar ships were huge and intimidating, but they moved in predictable patterns. They announced their presence with powerful transmissions. They traveled in straight lines. "They have no idea we're here," he murmured to his tactical officer. "They've never faced an enemy that uses stealth." The convoy was carrying food and ammunition to the front lines. Destroying it would slow the Vraktar advance. But humans had learned something more valuable than simple destruction. "Remember the mission," Jinwoo told his crew. "We're not just here to hurt them. We're here to make them afraid." The attack came without warning. Human ships appeared from empty space like demons materializing from nightmares. But instead of destroying the convoy immediately, they picked it apart piece by piece. First, the communication arrays went dark. The Vraktar crews found themselves alone and isolated. Then the engines died, leaving the ships drifting helplessly. Finally, the life support systems began failing one by one. Most species would have surrendered. The Vraktar tried to fight. Technical Sergeant Bora led a boarding party onto the command ship. The Vraktar defenders expected honorable combat between equals. What they got was something completely different. The humans moved through the ships, corridors like water flowing downhill. They used every advantage their Deathworld evolution had given them. In the cramped spaces, human flexibility dominated. When the artificial gravity failed, humans adapted instantly while Vraktar soldiers drifted helplessly. But the real terror came from watching humans fight. They didn't slow down when wounded. They didn't retreat when outnumbered. They fought, with a calm efficiency that spoke of thousands of years of practice. "They don't stop," one captured Vraktar officer gasped to his interrogators later. "We broke their bones and they kept fighting. We shot them and they kept coming. What are they?" The answer came from the Human Psychological Warfare Division. Lieutenant Minhyuk had been studying Vraktar communications, learning their language and culture. He understood exactly what the enemy feared most. "They're bullies," he explained to the other humans. "They're used to fighting creatures weaker than themselves. They've never faced real predators." The humans began leaving survivors from every attack, not out of mercy, but as messengers. Vraktar soldiers returned to their fleets with stories that grew more terrifying with each telling. Tales of humans who fought without fear. Soldiers who continued advancing despite wounds that should have been fatal. Crews who adapted to any situation without panic or confusion. Warriors who seemed to treat combat as the most natural thing in the universe. The psychological impact was immediate. Communications Officer Mira intercepted Vraktar transmissions and translated them for the Confederation leaders. "They're calling us the demons from the impossible world," she reported. "Some of their units are refusing to advance. Others are requesting transfers away from human-controlled space." The Vraktar tried changing their tactics. They sent faster ships thinking they could outrun the humans. But human vessels had been built for war in a system where everything moved at incredible speeds. They easily kept pace with any enemy ship. They tried larger fleets thinking numbers would help. But humans had learned to fight as packs on a world where individual strength meant nothing without cooperation. The human crews worked together with an efficiency that made alien coordination look clumsy. They tried changing their routes using different star systems to avoid human patrols. But humans had been explorers before they were warriors, They knew every hiding place in the galaxy. Captain Kyungmin received regular reports aboard his flagship. Each one showed the same pattern. The Vraktar advance was slowing. Their supply lines were breaking down. Their crews were losing the will to fight. "How long before they collapse?" asked his tactical officer. "Soon," Kyungmin replied. "But we need to be careful. Cornered animals are the most dangerous." He was right to be cautious. The Vraktar leadership was growing desperate. They had built their empire through conquest of peaceful species. The idea that they might lose to anyone was unthinkable. That's when they made their fatal mistake. Intercepts showed Vraktar fleets moving toward civilian targets, refugee planets and hospital ships, the defenseless populations that the Confederation was trying to protect. The message was clear. If the Vraktar couldn't win through military might, they would force surrender through terror. When the reports reached the human fleet, something changed. Velthara noticed it first during a communication with Captain Kyungmin. The human's face looked different, harder. His eyes held a cold fire that made her instinctively back away from the screen. "Captain," she said carefully, "our sensors show Vraktar movement toward civilian areas." Kyungmin nodded slowly. "We see it too. What will you do?" The human was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but carried a promise that made Velthara's blood freeze. "The Vraktar wanted to see what deathworlders become when they're threatened," he said. "They're about to learn why every predator on Earth learned to fear us." The transmission ended. Within hours, the entire human fleet had vanished again from Confederation sensors. But this time, they weren't hiding. They were hunting. The Vraktar had made the mistake of threatening the innocent. They were about to discover that humans had two modes of warfare. The first was the controlled, efficient combat they had shown so far. The second was what happened when humans stopped holding. Back deep in space, Admiral Sungjae reviewed intelligence reports of Vraktar attacks on civilian targets. Images of burning hospitals and destroyed schools filled his screens. Children's voices crying in languages he didn't understand, but in tones that needed no translation. He had served in Earth's military for 30 years. He had fought in conflicts across human space. He thought he understood war. But watching alien children die for the crime of being weak brought out something primal in his species. Something that had been sleeping since humans left their deadly homeworld. "Signal the fleet," he ordered quietly. "All restrictions are lifted. Show them what apex predators do when you threaten their young." The Vraktar Empire was about to learn that they hadn't been fighting humans at all. They had been fighting humans who were trying to be civilized. That was about to change. The briefing room fell silent when Captain Kyungmin entered with his officers. Every alien in the room stared at the humans with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. These creatures walked upright on two legs like many species, but something about them was different. They moved with a fluid grace that spoke of perfect balance and deadly purpose. Dr. Soo-young stepped forward first. She was a small woman with gentle eyes, but when she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. "Before we discuss military strategy, you need to understand what humans are." She activated a holographic display showing Earth. The planet looked blue and beautiful from space, but the data that appeared around it made several aliens step backward in shock. "This is our home world," Soo-young explained calmly. "Gravity is 2.3 times what most of you consider normal. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which would be toxic to most galactic life. Surface radiation levels would sterilize most worlds. The weather systems regularly produce storms that would destroy your cities." General Zixtar clicked his mandibles nervously. "Impossible. No species could evolve under such conditions." Lieutenant Colonel Taewon smiled, showing teeth that looked remarkably sharp. His face bore scars that told of many battles. "Evolution didn't just let us survive our world, it made us masters of it." The humans began explaining their biology in simple terms. Their bones were dense and strong to handle the crushing gravity. Their muscles were built for power and endurance. Their hearts could pump the dangerous oxygen through their systems without damage. Their skin could handle radiation that would kill most creatures in minutes. But the real advantage, said Medical Officer Hana, is how we heal. She showed footage of human soldiers continuing to fight with wounds that would have killed most. Aliens. Arms broken but still functional. Cuts that sealed themselves within days. Humans who lost blood and kept moving. Fleet Admiral Quindala's crystal body chimed with distress. How do you survive such damage? Pain is just information, Hana replied. We learn to use it, not fear it. But the biological briefing was just the beginning. Marine Sergeant Young-ho stepped into the center of the room. He was built like a rock, all muscle and scars. Without warning, he dropped to the floor and began moving. The aliens watched in horror as the human twisted his body into shapes that should have broken bones. He bent backward until his hands touched the floor behind his head. He folded his legs into positions that made the joints look reversed. Throughout it all, he never stopped smiling. Human flexibility, Young-ho explained as he stood up. Our joints can move in ways that would snap most species in half. Several Confederation officers required medical attention. The demonstration continued with Lieutenant Minhyuk showing off human reflexes. He had his officers throw objects at him while he was blindfolded. His hands moved like lightning, catching everything without seeming to look. His body twisted and dodged with movements too fast for most aliens to follow. Our reaction time is 3 times faster than galactic average, he explained. We had to be fast. Everything on our world tried to eat us. But the real shock came when the humans reviewed the Vraktar threat assessment. Captain Kyungmin pulled up tactical displays showing the enemy fleet formations, their weapons, and their battle strategies. This is what has you so worried, he asked. The question hit the room like a physical blow. Commander Zixtar's compound eyes flashed with anger. They destroyed 7 of our fleets in 2 weeks. Yes, Kyungmin replied patiently. But look at their tactics. They form straight battle lines. They announce their attacks. They fight with honor codes. He shook his head. This isn't war. This is a ceremony. Dr. Soo-young brought up Earth's military history. Images flashed across the screen of human conflicts spanning thousands of years. Battles fought in frozen mountains and burning deserts. Wars that lasted for decades. Conflicts where humans used every advantage they could find. We learned to fight because we had to, she explained. Our planet tried to kill us every day. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the ground beneath our feet. We didn't have the luxury of honorable combat. We fought to survive. Lieutenant Colonel Taewon stepped forward again. The Vraktar use conventional tactics against conventional enemies. But humans aren't conventional. He showed them video of human military training, soldiers moving through environments that would kill most species. Teams working together with precision that seemed impossible. Individual fighters adapting to any situation without panic or confusion. Your fleets meet them head-on because that's how civilized species fight, Taewon continued. But we learned something different on Earth. The best way to win a fight is to make sure it never starts fair. The aliens exchanged worried glances. These humans talked about war like it was an art form. They discussed tactics that seemed almost criminal to species raised on peaceful worlds. What are you suggesting? Velthara asked nervously. Captain Kyungmin's smile was cold but reassuring. We're suggesting you let us show the Vraktar what happens when they pick a fight with Deathworlders. Engineer Do-hyun activated another display. It showed human ships in detail. The aliens had assumed they were just larger versions of normal spacecraft. They were wrong. These aren't exploration vessels, Do-hyun explained. They're weapons platforms. Every system is designed for combat. The engines can accelerate at rates that would kill most crews. The hulls can take impacts that would shatter normal ships. The weapons... He paused. The weapons are built for war against enemies that don't give up. The humans began outlining their plan. It wasn't a battle strategy in any sense the Confederation understood. It was a campaign of terror designed to break the enemy's will to fight. First, we gather intelligence, explained Commander Jinwoo. We learn everything about them. How they think, what they fear, what they need to survive. Then we take it away from them, added Technical Sergeant Bora. Not their ships or their worlds, their confidence, their certainty, their belief that they can win. But what about honor? Asked Fleet Admiral Quindala. What about fighting fair? The humans looked at each other and something passed between them. An understanding that ran deeper than words. Honor is a luxury for species that have choices, Captain Kyungmin said quietly. We learned a long time ago that when someone threatens everything you love, you use whatever works. He stood and looked around the room at the frightened aliens. You called for help. We came. But understand what you're asking for. We're not going to fight your war the way you would fight it. We're going to fight it the way we learned to fight on a world that never showed us mercy. The room was absolutely silent. The Vraktar think they know what war is, Kyungmin continued. They're about to learn they were wrong. We'll give you 3 days to prepare your people. After that, we show them what real predators can do. As the humans filed out of the briefing room, Velthara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. They had called for aid against the Vraktar Empire. What had answered their call was something far more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Confederation was about to learn that sometimes the cure was worse than the disease. But in their case, that might be exactly what they needed. The stars were dying. Velthara pressed her webbed fingers against the cold metal of the communication console. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear. Around her, the command center of Harmony Prime buzzed with panic. Officers from 12 different species ran between stations, their voices creating a chaos of sounds that made her head hurt. Another fleet is gone, reported Commander Zixtar. His insect-like eyes reflected the red warning lights. The Vraktar destroyed them in less than an hour. Velthara felt her heart sink. That made 7 fleets in 2 weeks. The Galactic Confederation had never faced anything like this. For thousands of years they had lived in peace. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not war. Their weapons were meant to clear asteroids, not fight battles. But the Vraktar Empire was different. They came from the dark edges of the galaxy like hungry wolves. Their ships were black metal fortresses covered in weapons. They took worlds and enslaved entire populations. They showed no mercy. How long until they reached the core worlds? Velthara asked. 3 months, Zixtar replied. Maybe less. The room fell silent, except for the hum of machines. Everyone knew what that meant. The Confederation would die. Billions of peaceful beings would become slaves or worse. Velthara swam to the main communication array. Her species, the Merdin, were natural diplomats. They had helped create the Confederation through words, not weapons, but words would not stop the Vraktar. Prepare a galaxy-wide transmission, she ordered. To whom? Asked the communication officer. Everyone. Anyone. We need help, and we need it now. The message went out on every frequency they knew. It traveled faster than light to every corner of the galaxy. The words were simple, but desperate. To any civilization capable of military assistance, we offer all our technological knowledge and resources in exchange for aid against total destruction. Far away, on the edge of known space, a small human monitoring station picked up the signal. Commander Jiho was drinking coffee when the alert came through. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had spent 10 years watching the galaxy from this quiet post, cataloging new stars and making sure Earth stayed hidden. Sir, we're getting something strange, said Communications Officer Mira. She was young and smart with quick fingers that danced over her controls. It's a distress call, but it's big. Jiho walked over to her station. How big? Galaxy-wide. Someone is asking for military help. Mira's eyes widened as she read the translation. They're offering everything they know about technology in exchange for aid. Engineer Do-Yun looked up from his repair work. He was a quiet man who understood machines better than people. Must be desperate to offer that much. Medical Officer Hana joined them. She was gentle but tough, the kind of person who could heal wounds and make hard decisions. What's threatening them? Mira worked her magic on the signal, pulling out details. Images appeared on their screens. Burning planets, destroyed fleets, cities full of frightened aliens. Something called the Vraktar Empire, she reported. They're wiping out something called the Galactic Confederation. Jiho studied the images. The aliens looked so different from humans. Some had shells, others had wings or extra arms, but their fear was the same. Their pain was real. "Sir," Doyen said quietly, "look at what they're offering." The list of technology made Jiho's breath catch. Faster than light communication, energy shields, gravity control, medical techniques that could regrow limbs, power sources that lasted forever. It would advance human science by centuries, Hana whispered. "If we help them," Mira added. "And if we can help them." Jiho thought about Earth. Humanity had been exploring space for only 50 years. They had good ships and weapons, but they were still learning. These aliens had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, but humans had something these aliens clearly didn't. They had experience with war, real war, the kind of war that came from a planet where everything tried to kill you. Send a response, Jiho decided. "What should we say?" Mira asked. "Tell them help is coming." The response reached Harmony Prime 12 hours later. Velthera stared at the message in confusion. The translation system struggled with the language, but the meaning was clear. A species calling themselves humans was offering military assistance. "Have we ever heard of them?" she asked the computer. "Negative. Species unknown. Origin world designation, impossible for life." Velthara's fins fluttered with confusion. "What do you mean, impossible?" The computer displayed information about the third planet of a small yellow star. Gravity 2.3 times galactic standard. Atmospheric oxygen content 21%. Surface radiation levels, lethal. Weather systems, extreme. Classification, deathworld. "That can't be right," Zixtar said, reading over her shoulder. "Nothing can live on a world like that." But more messages were coming from the humans. Technical data about their ships, coordinates for a meeting, a promise to arrive within days. "Should we trust them?" asked Fleet Admiral Quindala. Her crystal body rang like bells when she was nervous. "We know nothing about them." Velthara looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed Vraktar fleets advancing on 3 fronts. In 2 months, they would reach the heart of Confederation space. "We don't have a choice," she said. "Send them our location. Tell them we'll be waiting." 3 days later, the human fleet arrived. Velthara had expected small ships, maybe a few brave explorers. What came out of hyperspace made her question reality. Massive vessels of metal and fire, bristling with weapons she didn't recognize. Ships that looked like they were built for war, not exploration. The lead ship was enormous. It moved through space like a predator, all smooth lines and hidden power. When it opened a communication channel, the voice that came through was calm and confident. "This is Captain Kyungmin of the Earth ship Indomitable. We're here to help." The image that appeared on screen made several officers gasp. The human looked like the aliens with 2 arms and legs, but different. His skin was dark, his eyes sharp and intelligent. He wore simple clothes, not the heavy life support gear that most species needed. "Captain Kyungmin," Velthara managed to say. "Thank you for coming, but I must ask, how are you alive?" The human smiled, showing white teeth. "We're tougher than we look. May we come aboard? We need to discuss battle plans." Battle plans. The words made Velthara's blood run cold. The Confederation knew about defense, about protecting what they loved. But battle? That was something else entirely. An hour later, Captain Kyungmin and his officers stepped onto Harmony Prime's command ship. They moved with a grace that spoke of perfect balance and control. They breathed the station's atmosphere without masks or filters. "Your ship," Kyungmin said, looking around the peaceful curved corridors filled with art and gardens. "It's beautiful." "Thank you," Velthara replied, "but I'm afraid it's not built for war." "That's okay," said the human. His smile was kind, but his eyes were hard. "Ours are." As they walked to the briefing room, Velthara wondered what they had invited into their galaxy. These humans seemed so calm, so confident. They acted like war was just another job. She didn't know yet that for humans it was. The meeting was about to begin. The Confederation was about to learn what happened when you called for help and Deathworlders answered.